Hi, this is Popo. I hope you'll fine. Welcome back to the Matches Miniature series, where we cover some real matches game that happen on real life, on real board, against real people, actually the friends of a chess club. And here this is nearly the end of our series of Matches Miniatures, but I guess not yet, because you noticed that I didn't cover the Naga yet, but the Naga at this point are very weak, and my friends hate this faction, just simply. So I wait for the next patch of matches to see what would be the next Nagas, and maybe there would be 3 other factions at that time, so that would be very interesting to see what would happen. And maybe at the time I posted the video, maybe the patch is already out, so this means that I'm already playing that with my friends. So, special game here, Goblins again, but remember the last Goblins game I showed you, I just lost like a complete scumbag against the 2000 Elo FIDE rating guy. So yeah, this was justified because I'm not that good at chess. But here, this is another type of Goblins game I want to show you. Here, I always wanted to show you some games that are very short, with tactics and stuff. But here, I want to show you most not incredible game, not big brain tactics and stuff. But this is a special game because actually this is the first victory of the guy which gets bullied every episode. Remember, he has been bullied with a lot of factions, and every time I just was roasting at him. But he made a very cool victory here. Not incredible because his opponent didn't play that well, but here he can show you what actually a low or intermediate elo match chess game can look at. So here, with the goblins with white, we have the bold guy, and here we have the centaur guy, which likes bold move, which play as human. And I have to say that this bold guy says, okay, I don't like humans when I played match chess, because obviously I want bold moves, so I want bold tactics, so I want bold faction, not humans. That doesn't help. But anyway, this game has been tried, and let's see. So the game starts with pawn to c4, English opening. So I don't know if the theory is known because we have pawn to f6, so very weird as the beginning. Pawn to d4, and here pawn to e5, like playing to control the center. This is very weird, but okay. We have pawn to e3 defending, pawn to d6, and here we have a kind of very cool structure that defends almost the field. You have to be careful though, because this diagonal is kind of open to the king, so at some point maybe the troll and maybe the elf can join a party, so yeah, be careful. So Croc to c3 is played, okay, trying to control v squares. This is pretty interesting. Pawn to f5, claiming back this square, and maybe the goal here is to get some square for the queen. We have Croc to f3, putting pressure here because after captures there recaptures. But here Black doesn't even play for it. He plays knight to f6. And I don't know if this is intentional or not. Maybe he wants to position the knight on e4, or maybe he was buzzing at something else. I don't know. This seems to lose a pawn, because we have pawn takes, and then a croc takes. So white is up a pawn with a croc, which is well placed. We have a knight to c6 trying to challenge this. I'm not sure that's the right idea, because you run into this, and the structure is not okay. But if you play with demons, maybe you want that to develop the bishop here, develop the rook here. That might help to get some activity. Also, maybe gambiting the pawn on e gives this bishop and this bishop some activity. I don't have any idea here. But yeah, knight to 6 is played, and this is refused, so croc to f3, trying to replace somewhere else. And we have a queen exchange already. Here with the humans, I wouldn't exchange the queen. This is only range 3, and it has to get to the king to get pretty useful here. The power is already consumed, so maybe you won't exchange an unlimited queen for a queen by 3. I don't know. I'm not convinced of this. So okay, the queen exchange happened. So the croc recaptures. We have bishop to b4 with check, croc to c3. Actually, here this seems like we get closer and closer to an endgame, because after bishop captures, pawn captures. Yeah, the structure is very weird, and at that point you don't really want to castle king side, I guess. Maybe, yeah, you want to hide your king, of course, but maybe you want to push this, and then put the king here. And you, at some point, you have to defend this. And this is why we have knight to e4, so immediately attacking this pawn on c3. And yeah, you don't have a lot of way to defend. You have to play the elf to b2, but this elf is very bad placed. So this is why we have knight back to c5, and I guess the goal now is to go to a4 and then target both at once. So very cleverly played, rook to c1, okay, nice. We have a knight to a4 and then elf to a3. And elf to a3 is like better because now it gets a little control over this diagonal. So it depends where you want to put it because this is only range 3, but okay, this is already something. We have bishop to e6 attacking again this pawn. So here black wants to attack the structure of pawns, but here I remember that this is defended by the elf, so nothing to worry about. However, crook to d4 is played, and here this is pretty interesting because this is a fork for these two pieces, and here what do? You can choose to trade and then white gets this important structure, else you just move the bishop out, then maybe there's a capture here, and you're slightly better. Or, if you play this, you can go for this. So maybe you put the bishop on d7, trying to defend here and to be sure that nothing would happen, but you would likely to put some pressure with the elf to d3 maybe, and then you have to play the rook to f8. Like, this is a variation that somehow black didn't want it. The center guy somehow thinks that the less pieces there are on the board, the most powerful humans can be, because they remember the game that happened between goblins and stuff. So this is why they think that this is good to keep only the rooks on the game. So we have a mass simplification. So knight takes d4, pawn takes d4, knight to b6, getting even more pressure on the c4 square, but it's defended. We have elf to d3, going for this pawn later. We have rook to d8, putting pressure here. I don't know what are actually the plans, but yeah, it gets the file. And then we have castle. And here, I'm not that convinced that castle is a good move. Okay. Maybe at this point, yes, but you want to push here and your king is not that active. I guess maybe the rooks are going to be traded soon and you need your king to be in the center of the board to do such stuff. Or maybe I'm just wrong, but yeah, I'm not convinced about the castle move. I can understand it by the fact that you want to develop the root here, but here the field is completely closed. So at that point, this is not that easy. So we have knight back to d7, maybe wanting to challenge on c5 with this kind of move, but at the same time would push, I don't know. Pawn to d5 is played anyway, and here it kicks the bishop. So we have first knight to e5 tempo, which is not that stupid, because if, for example, if you decide to go here, then you have a rook captures there, targets this with tempo, this target this with tempo, like, this is not that easy to defend this position. So first you have to put the elf to d2 in order to be sure that this pawn isn't hanging, even though you have still a piece here. You have bishop back to f7, so nothing to worry about for them. And elf to b2, so putting some pressure against the knight. Knight goes to d7, and here elf to d4. And here this is a pretty nice fork between these two pawns. So one of them is going to be captured. We have pawn to g5, and instead of capturing on a7, we have a pawn to g4, which is played. So a very surprising move. I wouldn't expect that. I would expect some capture, but at the same time, when you think about it, if you decide to capture there, you run into a rook to 8, and after you just retreat it, then the rook is going to snap a2. So maybe it's the right idea not to attack here. Also, please note that there could be some kind of fork here at some point on f6 if the knight dared to move. So, okay, pawn to g4 maybe makes sense. Pawn to f4 is played, and here we have king to g2. And here I was thinking at first when I personalized that, what's the idea of king to g2? And this is not that stupid. After castle, you have pawn takes f4, pawn takes f4, and pawn to h4. And here maybe you want to run the king on g3 and try to snap this pawn. And maybe at the same time the king tries to support the double pawns here. So yeah, that makes sense. Pawn to a6 is played, and here maybe white missed a very good tactic. Here the point is that this pawn is not that defended. So it would be interesting if you get something like this, or maybe, yeah, because this is supported, so you have to put the rook here at some point, and then you can just run here and then capture here. So Now, instead, we have rook to c3, which is played, so he wants to get the pawn this way, so put the rook here. But he goes in deep variation, because we have bishop to g6, and after pawn to h5 kinking the bishop, we have bishop to b1 attacking on a2. You wonder why you didn't want to get the rook to f3. Remember that this bishop can just go here and pin the rook, and then it's lost. So we have pawn to a3, putting the pawn on dark squares to avoid any problem, but bishop to e4 check happens on the board, and then how are you gonna defend? The point is that if you try to defend with f3, that might close the structure, this is okay, but now this elf doesn't have a lot of activity, you have to trade at some point, or here the plan with to go here and snap the pawn is a little more difficult. So this is why we have elf to f3 defending, asking for a trade, but of course rook to e8 is played, so not wanting to trade. And here it's not that easy. If you decide to trade this way, you have a tempo over the health here, and you have to put it on some good square. And actually, you don't have any real good square, like you want to shift it this way, but it's going to be trapped at some point. So this is why you have king to h3, which is played. King to h3, very, very weird move. What's the idea? Are you going to see pawn to a5, king to h4, rook to c8, and king to g5. So it just runs to get the pawn this way. Like, white is just wanting to get this pawn on f4, and here this is very hard to stop. So we have bishop captures, rook captures, and then pawn to a4, just letting the pawn be captured. So here, if you see, white is up to 2 pawns here. So it's clearly better, and at some point the rook can try to get here later if the king is well placed. For example, here if this pawn is removed, like there tends to be some schematics of checks, so you have to be very careful. Rook to d8 is played, ready to control the open file, and here elf to f6, threatening the rook. This is not a big deal. You just let that happen. Maybe you play a rook to a8, a rook to b8. But here, like played a very bad move indeed. I don't know why. I feel very completely, I don't know, hopeless, and I decided to capture on f6. And capturing on f6 is a big mistake, because this knight on f6 was controlling these two squares. And it was important not to allow the rook to go here at some point, because it would put pressure over the e6 square to get a check over the king. So with this capture now the rook is on f6, and now you can have some check patterns which are ugly. So here in this position we have a rook to e2, so maybe black doesn't understand really what's happening actually on the board. You can decide to go for a massive trade here, but I'm not sure this is the right idea. The rook is too slow to get something. So this pawn is threatened on e2, so pawn to f4 is played. Why not? He gives some movement now to the rook, and maybe the rook wants to come up at some point. I don't know how he's going to do that, but okay, why not? And here a blunder played by black. Rook to c2. This is a massive blunder. The idea is that, oh yeah, you can't defend this pawn on c4, this is going to be captured. But here, actually this is made in 12 moves. So feel free to pause the video and find the correct answer for white. Well, I'll give you a couple of seconds. Okay, I guess this is pretty easy. The first move is to play rook to e6 check. And now the problem is that, think about it. How are you going to escape the series of checks that would be put by the rook? If you decide to put the king here, the rook is gonna come here, and you go here and back to check. Okay? If you here, the rook is gonna come here, and then you have to go here, and then it goes back here, and this is check again, and you can't go here, you can't go here, and go here, so you're forced to go here. So black is trapped into an endless chain of checks. And you might say, okay, this is just perpetual check. No, remember that each time the goblins give a check, the king loses 1 heart. And when the heart is just to 0, this is game over. So we have this stupid goblins met in 12. So king to h8, rook to f6 check, king to g8, rook back to e6 check, king to f8, rook to f6 check, king to g8, rook to e6 check. We have some novelty with king to g7. And here you have to be just careful with what move to play here. actually this is not that bad. For example, if you decide to play the rook to e7, the king would go to g7, and then you lose a tempo to get back to check on the f6 square. So here, a very good move played by White with h6 with check. So now everything is covered here. You have no escape. So king goes to f8, rook to f6 check, king to g8, rook to 6 check, king to f8, rook to f6 check, king to g8, rook to e6 check, king to h8, rook to f6 check, king to g8, and then rook to f8 check. So here this move is very funny because you just troll your opponent like, you can't take me, because at that time I give this check, this is checkmate. This is just a little childish. But yeah, I guess this guy was so happy to have his first match as victory that he wanted to celebrate it this way. So yeah, this is very cool to see this kind of game, because if you remember, this guy get bullied over the matches game because he wasn't really understanding the mechanics. This was hard to get, and there were a lot of strategy he didn't get at some point. But here, okay, this is not the best game you can find on the matches. There was some inaccuracies and mistakes. Maybe I didn't go deeply into this, but this is a pretty decent game for his level. So I'm very glad that he made actually some progress over matches, and is more motivated than ever to play against some matches and find some other stuff and win more games. So this is the end of this video. I hope you like this game. We're going to see each other next time for another stuff. So see you then. Bye bye.